What's poppin', y'all? Ye just dropped a bombshell. We're talking atomic bomb on all his stands. And I know them Ye stands is looking around like, damn. Well, you already know, like, I casted Ye to the side. So, well, we're going to start off. I think there's a couple of layers deeper that we're going to dig. One interview where nobody's even talking about it right now. So stay tuned for that. But this all starts with Ye putting out a tweet that said the following. And it was in preparation for World War III. So first he says, I changed my album name to Cuck. What? Like for me, I'm going to keep it a buck. Once I found out Ye was sending chicks to get smashed and then coming back to him, I was like, all right, this is just some weirdo stuff. I cast him to the side. That was my breaking point. So him, the realization that he's gonna put out now, especially after calling an album Cuck, I ain't listening to that, is no surprise to me. And it's not like, whoa, what? Actually, it is a big surprise to me, but regardless. So the tweet in question says the following. This song is called Cousins, about my cousin that's locked in jail for life for killing a pregnant lady a few years after I told him we wouldn't look at dirty magazines together anymore. Perhaps in my self-centered mess, I felt it was my fault that I showed him those dirty magazines when he was 6, and then we acted out what we saw. My dad had Playboy magazines, but the magazines I found in the top of my mom's closet were different. My name is Ye, and I sucked my cousins till I was 14. Tweet sent. There are a couple of different layers to this. Number one, this is sent in attachment with a music video. I don't know if it's going to be the official video for a song. So this is promotion for a song. Ye also loves attention. Do I think he's willing to outright lie for attention? Yes, if he will walk it back later. So I think there is potential if this is a lie for him to be like, yo, I was just trolling. I do think that's a possibility. I don't think he would lie and just hold the lie in and let everybody believe that it was true. So this is promotion as well. We know Ye loves attention. This got 27,000 bookmarks, just insane levels of support or attention generation. And then you've got people coping in the comments saying, oh man, you got to understand, like, this is marketing, this and that. Let's not do that. Let's not do the cope. But looking at some of the lyrics of the song, Cousins, he does a cover of Dave Blunt's 10 Perks in the second half for the chorus, which I didn't know. I had never heard Dave Blunt's 10 Perks before. I just heard like the most recent Dave Blunt's album and like The Cup and a couple of other songs. So I'm really, really glad that there's a straight version of this song that I can enjoy. So I just go and listen to Dave Blunt's 10 Perks so I don't have to listen to this. But he says, hanging with my cousin, reading dirty magazines, we seen some dudes kissing, we ain't know what that ish mean. And this is the thing he's talking about. So his mama nasty. And this is where maybe Ye just didn't even have a chance at birth. Maybe the degeneracy was genetic. Like his dad had the magazines. Your mom had not just magazines. Your mom had magazines of dudes going at it. Because that's the only thing. Like he says we started reenacting everything that we had seen. And he says his younger cousin at this point was 6. We don't know if Ye's got the numbers wrong, but your cousin is younger than you. He's 6. How old are you? That's what I need to ask. So what are you, 7, 8? Listen, I knew when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, not to slob on knob. I knew that for sure. I thank God that I was not exposed to any of this stuff. Hell, until I was like maybe like I never even heard of anything until I was like 14. I was so scared of it. But we're not gonna get into me. But I thank God that I did not fall into this, and it's a lot more difficult now. But what makes you want to be the person to give the head? That's what we gotta ask too. Like, yeah, he's doing some gay stuff, right? So it's like, hold on, you're older than your cousin. You see this being reenacted, and in your mind, you want to reenact and be the one given the head? Like, I'm not saying it would be any better if he was the one getting the top, but it would be less worse, if that makes sense. Regardless, he goes on and then he says, I don't think they understand that I'm not attracted to a man. They thought I was gay. Yeah, you gay. Like, what is it? You was slobbing on me for who knows years. Going on years, and you want us to think that, oh no, I'm not gay. That's like somebody was stealing daily, kleptomaniac, 5-finger discount, and he's like, you gotta understand, I'm not a thief. What are you talking about? You're not a thief. You stole. What are you talking about? You're not gay. You slobbed on up. What are we doing here? Granted, I don't understand. Now, this does lean itself into the theory. There's like a prevailing theory right now that early and also intense like addiction to this type of content, not just the homo stuff, but even like the straight stuff, turns people violent, or there's a correlation between like very, very violent murders in the past, like Ted Bundy and all these others. And this guy, clearly he killed a pregnant woman. It's disturbing to say the least. So Ye was probably feeling, rightfully so, some, like, I don't know, survivor's guilt. Like, that could have been him. But this is the thing, too. Ye starts getting some support. And hold on, why did he stop at 14? That's another question. And why does he stop at 14? This is where we got to bring the interview into play. So Academics did the interview with Ye, and he ended up putting it out without many edits. And then he talks about one of the edits that Ye wanted to make. So I'm going to run you guys that clip right now.
One of the edits was going to be this. Ye was like, in the interview, he said, he's like, yo, these niggas, I don't know if they think I'm the pink polo F word type of guy, blah, 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 right? And I think that was maybe around the time where he was talking about either Jim Jones or somebody. And that was like one of the edits. He was just like, yo, remember he calls Drake the F word, I think. He's like, yo, could you take out when I call myself the F word? And I was just like, it's interesting.
So you guys heard that. You're like, yo, he didn't want to refer to himself as a fairy. And you got to think, okay, it started to make me look back at a lot of things that Ye has done in his career or tolerated or supported and just say, because if you guys recall, not just the pink polo thing, right? But I would say Ye was the first rapper that was openly very, very, I wouldn't say necessarily, he was homo tolerant. He was like, yo, we got to get this anti, sentiment, anti-rainbow sentiment out of hip-hop. It's all in hip. He was the first rapper doing that at a time when it did not benefit you to do that. Now, I would say post Frank Ocean, you started to get points for doing that, especially if you weren't a street rapper. But before that, every rapper, you got no points for doing that. If anything, you might have lost points with the audience because like, yo, what the hell is this guy doing? Talking about, hey, get this rainbow stuff out of here. Especially 2005, which is when I'm talking about this, 2004, 2005. And that's where we're going to cite this interview that I haven't seen anybody talk about, and I think it's very, very valuable to add some context into this whole situation.
Everybody in high school be like, yo, you acting like a fag. You acting like, dawg, you gay? And I used to deal with that when I was in high school.
All right, so just that portion of that interview right there, he's talking about he had to deal with that in high school once he got into high school. When do Americans usually get into high school? Around 14 years old, 13, 14, usually 14 years old is when you're starting your freshman year in the 9th grade. So maybe this is the first time that he was revealed that like, yo, this is what being gay is. And then maybe he had to reevaluate and look into like, wait, yo, hold on, what's being gay? And he's like, oh, wait, I've been slobbing on meat the past who knows how many years. Oh, whoa, hold up. I can't be doing that anymore. I don't think that it's coincidence, if we're to believe what Ye is saying is true, that this coincides perfectly. And this is in 2005. So let's just continue.
And what happened is it made me kind of like homophobic because it's like I would like go back and like question myself, like, damn, why does everybody else walk like this and I walk like this? So why is then you start just looking, because you don't realize until you're in high school, people like, yo, fam, look at you. Look at how you act. If you see something and you don't want to be that because it's such a negative connotation towards it, you try to separate yourself from it so much that it made me homophobic.
And then you have this section, and this section of the interview really gets the gears cranking. Like you just sprayed some WD-40 in a factory. You've got the cobwebs out and everything. The conveyor belt starts rolling. It's like, wait, hold on. When you look at Ye, especially as an adult, especially during his career, there's no way you're thinking, yo, this guy's kind of gay at all. Zero. Zilch. But this is what they were saying in high school. And we know high school kids, they know if you're zesty. Like we could tell, okay, that guy's got some sugar in his tank. He's moved. Honestly, back in elementary school, there was like this fat kid. He had a single mom. He was a cool kid, but he would just always just hang around the girls. Always hanging around the girls. And we were like, yo, this guy's a little zesty. The way he moved a little bit. We just knew there was something off. Like, he wasn't like the rest of us. We didn't really know what the word for it was at the time. But granted, when you get to high school, they're detecting that. So I think they're detecting, like, okay, this Ye dude, Kanye Omari West, there's something about this guy. And then I think Ye starts to reevaluate himself, like, hold on, whoa, what's going on? It's like, and then he just goes to the full-on other extreme, and I think he cuts off. I don't think he just says, oh, we can't look at magazines together. I think he's saying, like, yo, I'm taking my mouth back. I'm repoing this mouth from you, and I'm also going to stop hanging out with you because you're this, even though Ye was the one slobbering on the meat. He wasn't even getting his meat slobbered on. Not that the second one would co-sign the second one, but then he goes to the full-on opposite extreme. So I think it turns into this form of self-hate because I guess he didn't even know what he was doing, although I'm not inclined to believe that. So then he turns into the whole, and this is why I hate this, because this is used as, it's one of the most moronic takes ever, but it's used as a, see, like somebody that's very against, like, let's say, like, rainbow stuff. That means he's one of them. It's such an elementary take that's so easily disproven. But regardless, it is true sometimes, though. But he turns into that. And even now, like, when Ye was doing the interview with academics, he tells academics to remove that part. Or he initially wanted him to remove it. And even now, on the track, on Cousins, he talks about, yo, I'm not attracted to a man. So he's kind of got to let you know again and again. And funny enough, Dave Blunt's music, a lot of the lyrics is letting people know that he's straight, which is, I think maybe that spoke to Ye as well, that element of it. Now, I'm not saying Dave Blunt's is with any boy stuff, but I'm just saying I think that resonated with Ye to a degree in the music and the vulnerability and the, like, issues with women, I guess.
By the time I was through high school, like, anybody that was gay, I was like, yo, get away from me. And really, like Tupac said, started hanging with the thugs, and you look up, and all my friends were, like, really thugged out. And it's kind of like I was racing to try to find that constant masculine role model right there, to the point where it's like I would really discriminate. Like, I use the word fag, like always condescending towards gays and look down upon gays.
This part isn't weird at all. Him looking down on that, he just joined a new group of people. So this group that he's with, like he said, all of his friends are thugs. Their value system is against that. So of course, you're going to adopt that if you want to be cool with them and you want to be more like them. And you're going to look down upon certain groups of people that are the out group of what they're representing. It's still like that. Like gangs, they're not messing with that. Now, maybe there are some people that are members of gangs that are DL or whatever the case may be, but the organization is not co-signing of that, regardless of how fragmented the organization may be, depending on wherever it's from. But I don't know. I'm not getting into no gang politics. It's not even worth talking about. But this next segment is where it gets really, really deep.
I mean, my cousin told me that another one of my cousins was gay. And at that point, it's kind of when the turning point where I was like, yo, this is my cousin. I love him. Like, and I've been discriminating against gays. It's like, do I discriminate against my cousin? And then everything starts to click. You know, he brings his partner with him to, like, Thanksgiving and all that. And you just had to sit back and think, like, damn, you know, hip-hop really is about, it seemed like it's about, like, fighting for your rights in the beginning, about speaking your mind and about breaking down barriers or whatever. But everybody in hip-hop discriminates against gay people.
Now I gotta know, which cousin was this? Was it the cousin whose knob he was polishing that told him that another cousin of theirs was gay? This seems to run in the family. Or is it the cousin whose knob he was polishing that is the one that is gay and started bringing his quote-unquote partner? This is what... That started bringing his man, not his part, we don't want some confusion, that started bringing his man to the Thanksgivings. But when you watch this interview back then, you look at it like, okay, yeah, it's like someone close to Ye in his family is the one that changed his mind about this. But looking at it now with these new goggles that we've got, you start to think about, like, hold on, he's looking at himself. And he's looking at it like maybe Ye is, I don't know what because Ye is doing some freaky, wild stuff with his wife and other people as we speak. So this isn't something he's doing some weird stuff. This is a fact, by the way, out in Japan, wherever he's at. So he's still on this freaked out stuff. I don't know if it's, now keep in mind, like the polishing your male cousin's knob is not freaked out stuff. That's beyond freaked out stuff. That's some fairy stuff. That's some rainbow stuff. So I don't know which cousin it is. And that's why we need a lot more information on this cousin. And depending on how old Ye is, we need to stop looking at Ye as the victim. And his mom, and this is why I think like it complicates a lot of the ways that we look at Ye's relationships, especially with his mom, because there's got to be a sense of resentment there where it's like, yo, your mom watching two dudes go at it is crazy. But also, you kind of fell into this because your mom didn't do a good enough job of protecting you. And that's not like to criticize them, but that's the truth. You didn't do a good enough job to protect your children if they're able to access these things, especially back then when it was easy to hide. You didn't have, like, for example, a hide, quote unquote. You shouldn't have even had it. But now, like, the kids got the phone, so the kid can just find it themselves, or someone at school can show it to them on the phone. So I don't know which cousin it is. And perhaps Ye feels some survivor's guilt or like survivor's remorse because the cousin probably, like, I don't know, maybe fell into a rage with his own identity and took it out on a woman, because Kim Kardashian was also talking about what seems to be Ye's cousin when she was trying to do this criminal justice reform stuff. It was from her documentary, so I'm not sure I can actually play it, but she was talking about how she said Kanye's cousin has a double life sentence for a murder that he committed when he was 17. And then she talks about how Kanye's aunt accepted her son's fate and said that she's not even that distraught, and that's just what happens to kids in their neighborhood. And no, kids in neighborhoods are not doing like double murders on pregnant women. Maybe they'll catch some shell casings, or maybe they'll catch an accidental bullet, but not intentionally. And we don't know the details of that case. But it's also interesting that guy took it not to the grave, but that guy hasn't spoken out against Ye either. So there are a lot of questions that come into mind with this. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. And I'm going to see y'all in the next one. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Go to helloyassine.com. Thank you for watching. Peace.